He's had enough. He wants to clean the monarchy, and it's all now in the hands of the courts. Meghan Markle is in full mode panic along with Harry because they both know what they did.
Breaking right now, Variety has just dropped a bombshell investigation into Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's...
Something is not adding up, and people are starting to notice. What began as a quiet legal dispute over a £157 million inheritance has suddenly cracked open a much bigger conversation, one that reaches all the way to the core of the British monarchy. At the centre of it all, a centuries-old rule, a modern reality, and questions that refuse to go away.
Maybe King Charles didn't want to do anything about it given what's going on with Andrew, but in order for William to save the monarchy, he has to deal with the Archie and Lilibet problem.
Because when a court openly admits that even a legally recognized child might not automatically qualify under outdated laws, it forces people to ask, what does that mean for everyone else? And now, attention is shifting fast. From aristocratic estates to royal succession itself, the same question is echoing louder than ever. Are the rules being applied consistently, or is there more beneath the surface? What you're about to hear is not just speculation. It is a collision between tradition and reality, and it is raising questions no one can ignore. Prince William just dropped a firm line in the sand, and it cuts straight through Meghan Markle's entire maternity narrative.
People think her kids are fake. They think they're AI.
I'm going to quote Tom Bauer by saying, he said, look, we all laughed at Samantha and she was right. And everything she said has come true.
While Meghan was posting TikTok-style dance clips from a hospital room and pushing them onto Instagram for attention, something far more intense was playing out behind the scenes in a courtroom across the ocean. A legal storm she likely hoped would stay buried suddenly exploded into the spotlight. We're talking about a massive £157 million inheritance fight, whispers involving a surrogate-born aristocratic child, and a 400-year-old royal rule now raising serious questions the palace has quietly avoided since 2019.
Something is happening right now in the courts, which is incredibly important, and nobody's paying attention to it because this will make history, and not in a good way for Meghan Markle.
The big question hitting harder than ever: were the Sussex children actually born of the body? Because if not, more people are starting to look closer, and the silence around it is getting louder by the day. This is not some small issue tucked inside the royal line. This feels like a full-on collapse waiting to happen. Just days ago, one of the biggest legal shocks to hit British aristocracy dropped, and almost nobody in Meghan-focused circles even explained what it really means. The Marquess of Bath, Alexander Thynn's son, Seolin Thynn, stepped into Bristol's High Court with his legal team and revealed something serious. His second son, 9-year-old Henry, born through surrogacy in West Hollywood back in 2016, might not even qualify as a legal heir to the family fortune under current rules.
Ever put an article out there that Meghan had a hysterectomy and couldn't have children, and that was a big issue in their relationship. So that says a lot to the fake royal kids right now, because obviously they couldn't have come out of her. So that's something that she obviously is going to have to deal with.
That detail alone is raising eyebrows everywhere, because if a child in that position can face questions over inheritance rights, it opens the door to much bigger conversations people were not expecting to have. And this is not small money. We're talking about a staggering £157 million tied up in old trusts, written in rigid language from before 1970. These are not modern agreements. They come from a time when the rules were locked in tight and rarely questioned. Under those rules, if a child is not physically born of the body, the system can refuse to recognize them in the same way when it comes to inheritance. It is that strict, And now people are realizing just how serious that wording can be. The judge, Mr. Justice Matthews, did not soften his words at all. He made it clear there is real uncertainty about whether Henry even counts as a beneficiary under those old trust rules.
She had a lot of health issues and she couldn't have one of her children. So they had to use a surrogate in the United States. Why the United States? Because in the United Kingdom, the children, even though through a surrogate, belong to the...
Let that sink in for a second. A 9-year-old boy, fully biological to his parents, born through a completely legal and documented surrogacy, and the system is still saying, "We're not sure you qualify." That is where this situation turns serious fast, because it exposes just how outdated and rigid these legal definitions can be. And once that door is opened, the spotlight does not stay in one place. It starts shifting, and attention begins moving towards something much bigger. This is where things start heating up for Meghan and Harry, because this case lands uncomfortably close to home.
The Marquess of Bath was open and transparent about this. So she is right now going through the legal process because as per the Peerage Act of 1963, that child born in the United States from a surrogate is not entitled to anything, inheritance or anything.
The royal line of succession is built on one strict old-school rule, born of the body. That phrase has been running the system since the Act of Settlement in 1701, holding strong for over 300 years without bending. There is no easy wiggle room in that wording, no casual exceptions written in. And now, with modern situations clashing against centuries-old language, people are starting to question how those rules actually apply today, and who they might impact next. Every royal heir followed that same system, witnessed by palace officials, documented step by step, carefully checked and confirmed without any gaps. There were no shortcuts, no surprises. Everything stayed tightly controlled and consistent.
And who does he take after? Does he look like anyone?
We're still trying to figure that out.
Everyone says the baby's changed so much over 2 weeks. We're basically sort of monitoring how the changing process happens over this next month, really. But his looks are changing every single day. So who knows?
Then Archie arrives, and suddenly the playbook starts looking different. Now, to be clear, this is not about jumping on online negativity or targeting Meghan for no reason. This is about patterns people say they are noticing, and questions that keep coming up again and again. The same Meghan who sat with Oprah talking about living authentically is also connected to a team that pushes back hard whenever simple questions come up about her pregnancy timeline. People ask basic things, and suddenly strong legal responses appear, shutting the conversation down fast. That does not come across as openness to many. It looks more like tight image control presented under a royal spotlight.
Meghan Markle has been incredibly quiet about the birth, but mostly the pregnancy of these children. Everything has been shady. The one who's been blabbing and saying crazy things is Prince Harry.
And when it comes to the pregnancy topic, this is not about wild claims. It is about clarity. In a system where bloodline and documentation carry serious weight, the questions being asked are actually very direct. Where were the children born? When exactly did it happen? And who officially verified it? That is all people are asking, and the fact these questions keep resurfacing is what keeps the situation in focus.
I mean, obviously, when William was born and Harry was born and George and Charlotte and Louis, we got great pictures outside the hospital. I remember, and William and Catherine especially, they made such an effort to show the whole world their new baby.
Look at William's children. They were born at St. Mary's Hospital and presented on the steps within hours, fully documented and visible to the public. The entire country could watch it unfold in real time, with every detail clearly confirmed and shared. Now compare that to Meghan's children, and this is where people start raising eyebrows. When Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor was born at Portland Hospital on May 6, 2019. The process did not follow the usual royal script at all. There was no hospital steps photo call, even though that tradition had been followed for decades without fail.
When the baby was born, when Archie was born, that was another, in my view, a disaster, because I knew we was not going to get a picture of it. Everybody was hoping we would get pictures of it.
There was also no signed notice from attending doctors posted publicly in the same way people were used to seeing. Those missing elements are exactly why questions started building, because the contrast between the two situations stands out more than ever. Yes, a birth certificate was released, but for many people it did not answer everything they were wondering about. Then Harry later shared in Spare that they left the hospital within 2 hours, straight into a lift, down to an underground car park, into a vehicle, and back to Frogmore Cottage, before the palace had even officially confirmed Meghan was in labour.
Do you remember Meghan actually refused to use the hospital that was usually used by royals and refused to use all of the normal medical staff? And there was all of the weirdness over the timing of the birth of Archie.
For a family that has spent centuries making royal births highly visible and carefully documented for constitutional reasons, not just ceremony, that kind of shift stands out in a major way. This is not a small adjustment or a minor update to tradition. It is seen by many as a complete break from the long-established system, and that is exactly why the conversation around it continues to grow louder. And then there is Harry's own description of the moment, and it does not sound like a formal royal record at all.
Harry on Spare talking about, how Meghan Markle, how complicated it was, how they went to the hospital, how Meghan Markle had to have 2 epidurals. We know all of that is BS. We know all of that is
He describes electric candles, framed photos of Diana, and even an Ayurvedic doctor guiding the scene, encouraging them to whisper wishes to the baby in the very first minute of life. That kind of personal, almost spiritual setup feels completely different from the structured, highly documented approach people are used to seeing with royal births. And it adds another layer to why this moment keeps drawing so much attention. It sounds deeply personal, sure, but it also feels far removed from the structured, documented process royal watchers are used to seeing. As one person said, other royals give a clear birth announcement, while Harry shared something that felt closer to a lifestyle story. Then June 2021 came with Lilibet's birth, and instead of settling things down, the questions only picked up speed. They doubled. The contrast between tradition and this newer, more private approach kept people talking, and the attention around it only grew stronger.
This scandal comes as no surprise. Speculation about the children has been simmering for years.
Born at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, Harry wrote that he personally delivered his daughter, saying, "I slid my hands under the tiny back and neck. I pulled our precious daughter from that world into this." It sounds like a powerful emotional moment, and no one is questioning a father wanting to be that involved. But this is where the real issue comes into focus, and it is something that keeps getting sidestepped. In a system built on strict rules and clear documentation, moments like this, shared in such a personal way, leave gaps that people keep circling back to, asking for more clarity around what actually happened and how it was recorded. In a system where rules about birth and verification still matter for succession, these details are not just private family moments. They carry weight far beyond Montecito. Ignoring that reality does not make the questions disappear. It actually makes more people start asking them.
Silence everybody and just produce a DNA sample or proof of delivery. If you had those things, it would be very easy just to put them out there and say, this is what happened. This is what it is.
Unlike every major royal birth going all the way back to the early 1700s, Archie's and Lilibet's arrivals were not presented in the same visibly verified way people were used to seeing. There was no widely shared formal confirmation process involving palace-appointed officials in the traditional sense. Not one clearly identified independent medical witness presented publicly in the way past announcements often highlighted, and no classic Privy Council-style confirmation either. Just Harry's personal account taking center stage. That shift is exactly why this topic keeps coming back into the spotlight again and again. And when your children are sixth and seventh in line to the British throne, a personal story, no matter how heartfelt, is not the same as an official constitutional record.
Meghan, a geriatric mother. The family claims and states that Meghan had a hysterectomy. How can a woman with a hysterectomy be pregnant? And most of all, why did the royal family, go along with this? And what's going to happen now that this has come out?
In a system built on clear rules and documented proof, that difference carries serious weight. Here is the part that keeps raising questions for many people. If there is nothing to hide, and maybe there is not, then why has there not been one clear, simple confirmation over the past 6 years? That is the point people keep coming back to, and it is why the conversation refuses to fade away. Not legal warnings, not complicated statements, not back-and-forth responses, just a straightforward verification that closes the door completely. That is what many people expect in a situation tied to constitutional rules. So why does such a basic question end up getting such layered and indirect answers? That is exactly what keeps the conversation alive and growing. Reports from well-placed sources suggest Prince William has taken these circumstances seriously.
So Prince William knows that the crown cannot keep making the same mistakes in the past, that nobody who is not working royal can hold title.
One insider shared that he views the situation around both births as unusual, which only adds more attention to an issue that was already under heavy discussion. That is not the kind of word someone in his position would use lightly, and his actions seem to reflect that same mindset, adding even more weight to the situation. There has been a noticeable effort to separate the Sussex name from the monarchy's official structure, with changes to royal listings and ongoing discussions about how titles are used, especially in commercial spaces.
At this point in time, King Charles doesn't understand that he cannot continue having Harry and Meghan on the British monarchy's website when they are absolutely trashing the very same institution and using titles for commercial purposes, which is basically repeating the same pattern that Sarah Ferguson has done and even Andrew did. That has to stop.
That shift has not gone unnoticed, and it is fueling a broader sense of frustration among those watching closely. People keep pointing out these patterns, and the more they do, the more the conversation continues to build momentum around what it all means. As one comment put it, "Meghan, if you hate the royals so much, stop using the title they gave you." That tension is exactly what stands out to many observers watching this unfold. It is not just media noise, it is the visible contrast between stepping back from royal duties while still using royal identifiers in public-facing projects. That contrast keeps people talking, because it raises questions about where the line is actually drawn. And this is why the Marquess of Bath case matters so much right now.
She wants all of the privileges that go along with an identity, but she doesn't want any of the responsibility. She doesn't want to do any of the work. She wants the tiara, she doesn't want the public servant.
His situation takes something that once felt theoretical and turns it into a real, active, legal question. Suddenly, this is not just discussion or speculation. It is a live issue being tested in court, and that shift is what makes everything around it feel far more serious. He clearly cares about his son, has been open about the surrogacy, and is actively going through the courts to secure his child's position. That is a direct, visible way of standing up and dealing with the issue head-on. But here is the key takeaway. His case highlights that under current British inheritance and trust laws, especially the older ones, there can still be real uncertainty around how surrogate-born children are recognized in very specific legal contexts.
And the Peerage Act of 1963 clearly states, just like for royalty, that a surrogate cannot be used.
And that point is not about personal opinion or public debate. It comes down to how the law is actually written. When centuries-old language meets modern realities, gaps can appear, and those gaps are exactly what courts are now being asked to interpret and resolve. Mr. Justice Matthews made it crystal clear. The Marquess has to go to court and formally request that Henry be added as a beneficiary. The law does not just make that happen automatically. Think about that for a second. A father has to stand before a judge and ask for his own child to be officially recognized under the system. That shows just how strict, and in some eyes outdated, some of these rules still are. The language is rigid, and unless it is challenged in court, nothing changes on its own.
And William has ordered an open investigation into Lilibet and Archie's birth because he knows that that cannot be hanging over the head of the monarchy, over his...
Now take that exact situation and scale it up to the monarchy. We are no longer talking about a private trust. We are talking about the Crown, the Act of Settlement, and the succession to the Crown Act. These are centuries-old constitutional frameworks that are not easily adjusted or reinterpreted overnight. You cannot just quietly update them in a closed-door meeting or smooth things over with a simple statement. These rules form the foundation of the entire system, and any question tied to them carries serious weight, which is exactly why conversations like this are getting so much attention right now.
We said, everything I said in the beginning was favorable, nobody printed that, and when I said nothing, they created stories, and it was really just...
So, if a £157 million estate can run into legal uncertainty over a surrogate-born child, what kind of questions could surface around an institution that is over 1,000 years old? That is where the scale of this issue really starts to hit. And this is where things can get uncomfortable very quickly.
But there were so many of them, and why? It would have been so easy to be honest about who she is.
If, and this needs to be said carefully, if it were ever formally confirmed that surrogacy played a role in either of the Sussex children's births, it could raise complex legal and constitutional questions under those long-standing rules. That does not automatically lead to clear outcomes, but it would likely trigger serious discussion about how existing laws apply in a modern context. Would Parliament then have to step in and examine whether their place in the line of succession meets the current legal definitions? That question is starting to sound less automatic than many once assumed. This new case suggests there could be more complexity involved, turning what some saw as a settled issue into a real legal question, rather than just a passing headline. Comments and concerns that were once brushed off are now being looked at again in a completely different light, and that shift in attention is what is driving the conversation forward with even more intensity. Statements like, "People need to look at the timeline," are suddenly getting renewed attention, not because of who said them, but because of what is unfolding in the courts right now. The focus has clearly shifted, and it is pulling more eyes onto the details. This is no longer just about opinions or speculation. It is about how existing laws are written and how they are actually applied in real cases. That change makes the conversation feel much more serious and grounded.
All of these lies started coming out, but we didn't know that she had told the royal family so many porcupines. So it makes sense, oh my God, I've got to keep everybody away because if they start talking, the lies come out.
Classic.
People are now zeroing in on phrases like born of the body and asking how consistently that standard is applied across different situations. And the more that question gets asked, the more pressure builds for clearer answers. When the same wording can put a child's inheritance into question in one case, it naturally sparks broader curiosity about how it works in other situations. That is not rumor. That is people closely examining legal language and how precedent is actually applied. The lack of detailed public clarification has also kept the conversation alive. When questions first started circulating, the responses focused more on protecting privacy and managing media coverage rather than offering clear, detailed public verification. That approach may be understandable on a personal level, but it has left some observers feeling like key questions are still sitting unanswered. And when that gap remains, the discussion does not fade, it grows louder. There is also an interesting contrast in how different situations are handled.
In this case, about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bar. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Archie.
Some follow long-standing, highly visible protocols, while others take a far more private route. And that difference is exactly what continues to draw attention and raise more questions. In the Marquis of Bath's case, everything is being handled out in the open, addressed directly in court with a clear process, clear arguments, and full visibility. It is structured, transparent, and easy for people to follow step by step. In comparison, the Sussex situation has been handled far more privately, with limited official detail shared publicly. That difference in approach is exactly what people keep pointing out, and it continues to fuel the discussion. Prince William did not create these questions, but he is in a position where clarity carries serious importance. From what can be seen, there appears to be an effort to keep the monarchy's future steady and free from uncertainty, especially on issues that hold constitutional weight. That is not about drama. It is about stability and protecting the structure of the system itself. And at the end of the day, everything keeps circling back to one key point: consistency. How are the rules written? How are they applied? And how clearly are they communicated to the public? The Marquis of Bath case has shown that even long-standing systems can run into modern challenges. And when that happens, people do not stay quiet. They start asking bigger, more serious questions.